What's up, witches and warlocks? This is Nick with you from Guiding Bolt Gaming, and with Halloween quickly approaching, it had me thinking of one-shot ideas to do with my players. So I decided that I wanted to use Dark Elves, or the Drow, in my one-shot, and while I was sitting down making notes, it actually brought to memory an issue of Dragon magazine that I had encountered. And it took me a little while to dig this up, but I did find it. Issue number 298 of Dragon, Dark Elves Evil Unleashed. And in that issue, you're going to find a bunch of different articles centered around Drow and their lore. And even though I feel like this information was probably meant more for the Greyhawk campaign setting, that doesn't mean that you can't take it and use it for another campaign setting, such as the Forgotten Realms. Now, what's cool in 5th edition, which is what I'm currently playing with my friends, is if you look on page 24 of the Player's Handbook, the Dark Elf is one of the subrace options for your players. So if you do already have a campaign that has a Dark Elf in it, or you're thinking about running one, there is a lot of really good information that you can pull out of this issue. So anyways, I'm flipping through looking for ideas, and I come to page 34, and there is an article by Eric Kagel called The Punishments of Lolth. And I essentially just dove headfirst into the web, because instead of now planning a one-shot, I'm talking to you fine viewers about this write-up. And essentially what I want to do is go through it and talk about the 9 tests that a priestess has to pass in order to reach her full potential as a follower of Lolth. So these tests, or punishments, also known as Shwi in the Drow language, are called punishments instead of tests because the way the Drow view them is there is no benefit of passing other than just being able to live, which if you think about it, that is probably a pretty big benefit, right? So what we're going to do is just start from the first test and progress forward, and the way that this works is the players, as they progress from level 1 through 20, they at specific levels they are presented with one of these tests. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, not all Drow will be subject to the punishments of Lolth. You essentially can break the Drow into 2 categories. You have the Unchosen, or the Tehi, and then you have the Chosen, or the Zwael. And the difference between the two is the Unchosen, they're the Drow, think of them as just Drow civilians. They're just your everyday level 1 Drow in society. They don't really have the ambition to advance. They're fine with just remaining where they are, toiling away as soldiers and servants. Whereas the Zwael, which also means candidate in Drow, are those that are kind of devout followers or worshippers of Lolth. And really any worshipper of Lolth can be considered a Zwael. However, most Drow, especially the clerics, kind of reserve that term specifically for the Drow who show obvious signs of the tests. The first test is the Test of Darkness, or the Chwineka. This occurs when a Drow has gained enough experience to advance to 2nd level. This is arguably the most terrifying of the tests because it's random and without warning. With this test, Lolth is inspecting the heart of the Dark Elf to see if they are truly evil enough to be considered a Drow. This test comes on suddenly and always when the Drow is within view of other Dark Elves. The Drow feels her heart swell with pride and power, but if she gives any indication of self-doubt or unworthiness, her heart racks with pain, and she begins to transform and convulse, turning into an Arakalith. Her eyes blacken and grow to enormous proportions, while 6 smaller eyes emerge around her face. 2 huge poisonous fangs emerge from the Zwael's mouth, and lastly, an extra pair of spider-like legs grows from her torso. It is believed that Lolth transforms them into these creatures as a mockery for being neither spider nor Drow, and they are hated by both Lolth and other Drow and hunted as such. Surviving the Chwineka proves that the Dark Elf has the evilness necessary to advance in Drow society. This makes the second test, the Test of Ambition, or the Chwikеzzar, available, which occurs some point between the 3rd and 5th levels. This test is considered the simplest of tests because the Spider Queen measures what Drow are considered best at, their ability to commit acts of murder, fraud, and deception. This test itself is very subtle. The Drow will receive correct but unverifiable information from an anonymous source of an extremely profitable venture. However, it will pose a great risk to the Zwail. Should the Zwail not act on this information, it is said that a tiny green spider exits the body, and the Drow is doomed to failure, typically going into exile, being driven mad, or even killed. The third test is the test of the Drider, or the Chwidridera, and is probably the most infamous of the punishments of Lolth. It is known outside of Drow society that those who fail this test are transformed into the foul creatures known as Driders. This test occurs when a Drow has gained enough experience to advance to 6th level. When this test begins, the Zwail develops disturbing visions of being consumed from the inside out by a writhing mass of spiders. These visions intensify, turning at first into a fear of spiders, and then to a phobia, which is difficult to deal with considering the sheer numbers of spiders and spider imagery a Drow is typically exposed to. If the Zwail can overcome the irrational behavior, then the fear subsides. Should she fail, her fate is sealed. The next time she rests, a minuscule red spider appears and crawls into the Zwail's mouth. Once inside, the Drow goes through a gruesome and traumatic transformation to become a Drider, hunted by other Drow and despised by Lolth. Assuming the Zwail survived the dreaded test of the Drider, the fourth test is the test of lies, or the Chwiakrell, which tests the Drow's status within their society. This test occurs when the Drow has gained enough experience to advance to 7th or 8th level. The premise of this test is to sow seeds of deception and lies with the purpose of bringing down an enemy and propelling oneself higher up the social ladder. The lie must be completely untrue, but the Zwail can help bring it to life by planting evidence or other nefarious misdoings. A Zwail will know the test has begun when they hear a rumor about themselves that is completely untrue. To do nothing about the rumor spells certain failure. They must quash the rumor and utterly humiliate, or preferably kill, the one that started it. Should the Zwail fail the test, they become incapable of lying, which is as good as dead in a Drow society. The test of sacrifice, or Chwidencha, is the fifth test. This occurs when the Drow advances to 9th, 10th, or 11th level. The Drow meaning of sacrifice differs from common tongue. For Drow, sacrifice equals loss without gain, which is a concept completely foreign in the Drow mindset. This test begins after the Drow has gained something of importance. That could be an item, new skill or spell, or even an increase in social status. Shortly afterwards, a spider messenger will appear on the object or representation of the trait that Lolth has chosen. It might be a magic item, spellbook, or even a body part of the Zwail. Regardless of what it is, the Zwail has 1 week from the date of being chosen to make the sacrifice. If the sacrifice is not made, the Zwail fails the test, and the next time the item or ability is used, the Drow transforms into a spider-leg horror. Chwidevbrii, or the test of betrayal, is the 6th punishment of Lolth. This can be a difficult test to complete. Although trust isn't typically practiced between Drow, it does sometimes happen or is even necessary. After this test, the Zwail will learn she can only ever trust herself. To be successful at this test, the Zwail must betray someone who has garnered her trust, or whom she has placed trust in herself. That could be a mentor, a teacher, friend, or even family. The victim must be on roughly the same or higher social step. Murdering a trusted housemaid means nothing to the Spider Queen. The selected target must be utterly destroyed in a way that advances the Zwail, and in the end, the victim must die. The test begins when a black spider with a dagger-like marking on its back appears. This occurs always in the presence of the victim, who is oblivious to its presence. Should the Zwail fail to slay the victim, then the hunter becomes the hunted. The target gains a supernatural ability to hunt down and slay the Zwail in retaliation. Having learned a valuable lesson in trust, the Zwail is now ready for the test of domination, or Chwihendrell, which is the 7th punishment and occurs after advancing to 15th level. It is now time to lead fellow Drow in the domination over lesser beings. Again, a spider messenger appears and draws the attention to a non-Drow being. It could be crawling on the snout of a kobold, or skittering across a map and resting on a settlement. Whatever it is, the meaning is immediately clear. A significant population of the chosen being must be either eliminated or taken prisoner, down to the last man, woman, and child. The population must be equivalent to a small town. There is no set time limit, but failure is an arbitrary time frame determined by Lolth herself, so it's best not to delay. Should Lolth determine it's taken too long to accomplish the task, the Zwail feels a sudden sensation of abandonment and despair. Within minutes, her body undergoes a transformation, similar to that of the Drider, but instead becoming a gruesome brood mother. In the test of vengeance, or Chwisasshra, which is the 8th test and occurs at 17th level, the Zwail is compelled to utterly destroy a sworn enemy. Unlike other tests, subtlety is not allowed. The destruction must be absolute, including the elimination of the enemy's family, household staff, and residence itself. Like so many times before, a tiny spider shows itself, making it clear who the intended target is. From that point on, it can never change. The Zwail may not use a third party to assassinate the target, and will immediately fail the test if she does. Lolth demands that the Zwail herself spill the blood of the enemy. Should the Zwail fail this test, then her enemy is granted the ability to teleport freely to the Zwail's location to exact their revenge. The 9th and final test is the Chwilolth, which occurs when the Drow has advanced to 19th or 20th level. At this point, the Zwail has reached the apex of her existence. She has faced every challenge, and it is now time to face Lolth herself. The test begins with visions of Lolth speaking to her, taunting, berating, and belittling her in any way possible. This can go on for several weeks, depriving the Zwail of sleep and meditation, until visions of the Spider Queen fill every moment of her life, causing vivid hallucinations. Then, suddenly, they stop without warning, and the Zwail knows it is time. The next time she is alone, she hears the sound of skittering claws behind her. When she turns, she sees the proxy of Lolth staring back at her. Lolth simply states, "It is time," and leaps to attack. It is a fight for her life, and the Zwail can use any and all means available, including weapons, magic items, spells, and traps. If the Zwail defeats the proxy, she will never again be challenged, and may even one day be granted the opportunity to become a proxy herself, allowing her to defend her position by eliminating ambitious Drow during future Chwilolth tests. Well, there you go, Drow fans. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed putting this together. I don't know about you, but I really want to make a Drow Priest now, just to see how far I can make it through the punishments. Although I have a feeling I'd intentionally fail around the 3rd test, or on the 3rd test, just to become a Drider. That way I could hunt down my former party members. But that's just me, though. Another fun idea would be to have one of the antagonists be a Drow, progressing through the ranks, and maybe as part of the test of domination, the town that your adventurers reside in is attacked, and they barely escape with their lives. Or maybe the adventurers even save the town, causing the Drow to fail and forcing Lolth to turn her into a brood mother, and now they have to hunt her down and slay her. Well, I'm going to go back to planning my one-shot now. If you enjoyed this, please consider doing what YouTubers do. Have a happy Halloween, and keep your distance from those 8-legged creepy crawlers.